In the coastal village of Isayama, dawn arrived not with light, but with sound. It was the murmur of waves against the sand, the cheerful calls of women heading to the early market, and the faint strains of high-life music drifting from a lavishly decorated house. This morning, those sounds also carried the scent of happiness, the rich aroma of jollof rice simmering over a fire, the salty sea breeze mingling with the smell of fresh paint on chairs neatly arranged in the yard. In a small room overlooking the sea, Enkemdalim, or Enkem as everyone affectionately called him, stood before an old mirror. He wasn't looking at the pristine white agbada embroidered with shimmering gold thread laid out on his bed. He was looking into his own eyes, the eyes of a man who had tasted bitterness, but which today held nothing but a brilliant light. Today was his wedding day. He took a deep breath, his chest swelling with a joy so intense it was almost painful. He was about to call Adama his wife. Adama, the girl as beautiful as her name suggested, who had walked into his life like a downpour after a long, relentless drought. Outside, the entire village seemed to be holding its breath in anticipation. Even the whispering river, which held so many of the earth's secrets, seemed to flow more gently today, as if singing a song of blessing. But in Isayama, the elders often said that when the river sings, you must listen very carefully, because not every one of its songs is a blessing. Enkem smiled at his reflection. He touched the faint scar on his temple, a memento from a difficult youth when he had to do all sorts of jobs to help his mother after his father passed away. He picked up the old photo frame on the table. In the picture, his father, a man with a kind smile, had his arm around a small, scrawny Enkem. "Father," he whispered, "are you proud of me today? I've tried to live as you taught me, honest, hardworking, and never letting the darkness in my heart overcome the light." He believed that somewhere, his father was watching. He would see the small house Enkem had built for his mother. He would see the electronics shop he had built from scratch, now the most reputable in the village. And most importantly, he would see Adama. A soft knock sounded, and Mama Ngozi entered. She wore a vibrant blue outfit, her smile capable of chasing away all the world's worries. She looked at her son, her eyes sparkling with pride. "My Nkem," she said, her voice warm. "Are you ready? The whole village is waiting for you." Nkem put the frame down and hugged his mother tightly. It was a firm embrace, filled with all the love and gratitude of a son who had weathered many storms with his mother. "I'm ready, Mother. I just wish Father was here." Mama Ngozi patted his back gently. "Your father is here. He's in your heart, in your smile, and in this very day. He would be so proud of you, Nkem. So proud." Just then, the door burst open and Chinedu, Nkem's best friend, rushed in like a whirlwind. He was already in his matching agbada, a grin stretching from ear to ear. Well, the groom of the year is here," Chinedu exclaimed. "My friend, you look like you're daydreaming." Nkem laughed. "I still feel like it. Like I'll wake up any moment and realize it was all a dream." Chinedu clapped him hard on the shoulder. "No dreams here. Today you marry the most wonderful girl in Isayama. 100% fact. Now get dressed. We can't keep the bride waiting." As Nkem put on the agbada, Chinedu walked around him, adjusting his friend's cap. He suddenly grew thoughtful. "You know, Adama is really lucky to have you. Not every man would be so patient and understanding with a family like hers." Nkem frowned. "What do you mean?" Chinedu hesitated, choosing his words. "Well, you know, her family isn't the warmest. Chief Emeka always looks like he's calculating the price of every breath you take. And Mama Ifeoma always seems worried, distant. People in the village say they're a bit arrogant and too secretive." He quickly added, "But Adama is different. She's a gem. I can see how much she loves you. That love is real." Nkem turned away, the smile returning to his face. "I don't care what people say. I know my Adama, and today, I will finally get to call her my wife." He stepped out into the yard. The scene was bustling. Women in vibrant headscarves were busy in the kitchen, their laughter crisp and clear. The men were checking the sound system, and the beat of drums began to rise in the distance. The entire village was joining hands to create his day of happiness. Enkem took a deep breath, letting the very essence of his wedding day fill his lungs. Nothing in the world could dim the light he felt in his heart. Or, at least, that's what he believed. If happiness at Enkem's house was a loud and vibrant symphony, then on the other side of Isiyama village, within the grand compound of Chief Emeka, it was a heavy silence. There was no cheerful laughter, no friendly neighbors coming and going. Only high walls, a garden so meticulously trimmed, it was soulless, and a cold, formal air. In the luxurious bedroom, Adama sat motionless before a large, gold-framed mirror. She was already in her magnificent wedding gown, a custom design of silk and lace that every girl in the village dreamed of. Her hair was styled in dozens of tiny braids, adorned with sparkling beads. She looked perfect, a perfect statue, but her eyes were empty. She didn't speak to the makeup artist or her cousin Chioma, who was pacing anxiously around the room. Adama was just silent, humming softly under her breath. A low, wordless melody, repeating over and over like an ancient chant. The tune wasn't melodious, it made the air in the room feel thick, prickly, and uncomfortable. Chioma couldn't bear it any longer. She approached, gently placing a hand on Adama's shoulder. "Sister Adama, what are you humming? I've never heard that song before." Adama started, as if waking from a dream. The melody died. "Singing? I didn't realize I was singing." She blinked rapidly, trying to focus on Chioma's reflection in the mirror. "Are you all right?" Chioma asked, her voice full of concern. "Goodness, your skin is freezing." She squeezed Adama's hand, and indeed, it was as cold as if it had just been pulled from ice, despite the sweltering heat outside. "You must be nervous. Don't be scared. Everything will be fine. Brother Enkem loves you so much." Adama only nodded, a mechanical nod. "I know," she whispered, but her voice held no warmth. She looked into the mirror again, and for a brief moment, her heart seemed to stop. The reflection seemed to ripple. The eyes in the mirror were no longer hers. They had darkened, deep and ancient, carrying a cruel wisdom she could not comprehend. She rubbed her eyes. The image was gone, leaving only a beautiful but tired Adama. Was she imagining it? This feeling, this sense of someone else, residing within her, had grown stronger in recent weeks. A cold shadow was slowly consuming her. The bedroom door opened. Mama Ifeoma entered. She wore an expensive outfit, but her face was as taut as a drumskin. She didn't smile at her daughter. Instead, she walked straight over, her sharp eyes inspecting every detail of Adama's appearance. "Everything must be perfect," she hissed, her whisper full of authority. She grabbed Adama's shoulders, her fingers digging in. "Listen to me, Adama. There can be no mistakes today. Do you understand? Not a single mistake." Her words were not like a mother's advice, but like a threat. Outside, they could hear Chief Emeka's booming voice giving orders to the staff. He didn't enter the room. His concern was not for his daughter's feelings, but for the success of an event that would solidify his status in the village. This wedding, to him, was a transaction. A maid brought in the veil, presented ceremoniously on a silver tray. It was long and delicate, embroidered with tiny flowers. As Chioma reached for it to place it on Adama's head, Adama suddenly gasped. She shuddered. Before her eyes, the image of the room vanished. In its place was a churning, black river. She heard whispers from the deep, hundreds of voices calling her name, pulling her down. "Adama," they called. She recoiled instinctively, a cry of fear caught in her throat. The veil slipped from the maid's hands, falling to the floor like a shattered cloud. "Clumsy," Mama Ifeoma snapped. She rushed forward, not to comfort her daughter, but to pick up the veil. She dusted it off angrily. "Stand still," she commanded Adama. She forcefully placed the veil on her daughter's head, pinning it roughly. "Pull yourself together. Don't ruin everything." Adama stood there, beneath the delicate shroud, feeling as if she were drowning. She loved Enkem. God, how she loved him. He was the only light in her life. She wanted today to be perfect. She closed her eyes, trying to picture his face, his smile. But all she saw was the black water, and all she heard were the cold whispers. When she opened her eyes, the person looking back at her from the mirror was no longer her. Those eyes, hidden behind the white veil, were smiling. A mysterious, triumphant, and utterly alien smile. The Sacred Heart Church of Isayama was not a magnificent cathedral. It was built of rustic brick and wood, simple but warm, a place where the community's faith had been nurtured for generations. This morning, the church was adorned with white silk ribbons and wreaths of tuberose, hand-woven by the village mothers. The fragrance of the flowers mingled with the scent of old candle wax, creating an atmosphere that was both sacred and intimate. In the small study behind the pulpit, Reverend Obinna was on his knees. His room was filled with books. Alongside Bibles and theological texts were old, worn leather-bound volumes, documenting the history, folklore, and even the old ways of the region. Before becoming a man of God, Obinna had been a scholar, and he believed that to defeat darkness, one must understand its origins. This morning, his prayers were not flowing smoothly. He was asking God to bless the marriage of Nkem and Adoma, but his mind was heavy. An unusual chill had just swept through the room, causing the pages on his desk to flutter slightly, though the window was closed. The air seemed to have grown thick, heavy like an impending storm. Reverend Obinna tried to dismiss it as mere nervousness before a big ceremony. But when he closed his eyes to pray, the image that came to his mind was not of a happy couple. He saw a beautiful flowering vine, slowly being constricted by a glistening black python. The python slithered up from the depths of a dark river, its scales wet and shimmering, its eyes glowing with a malevolent yellow light. The vision was too vivid, too terrifying. He snapped his eyes open, his heart pounding. And then he heard it. Not with his ears, but with his spirit. A low, deep melody was echoing in his head. That was it. The very melody he had read about in an ancient book, a song of invitation, used by spirits dwelling in deep rivers, particularly the Whispering River. The ancients believed that when this melody was heard, it was a sign that the spirits were coming to collect a debt. Now he understood. This was not ordinary anxiety. This was a warning. Reverend Obinna stood up and walked to the window. Outside, guests had begun to arrive, their colorful attire a vibrant tapestry. They were laughing, taking pictures, completely unaware of the spiritual storm that was quietly gathering. The contrast between their joy and the disquiet in his heart was cruel. He no longer prayed in generalities. He placed a hand on his chest, his whisper filled with power, drawing on his knowledge. Lord of hosts, I sense an ancient trespass. A covenant made in darkness seeks to claim what is yours. I pray you expose it. Grant me the wisdom to stand against the whispers of the river. He then turned back to his bookshelf. His hand skimmed past the theological tomes and stopped at a small wooden box. He opened it. Inside, beside a Bible, was a small cross, made of ebony, a wood that, according to ancient law, could repel river demons. He slipped the cross into his inner pocket. This was not a man preparing for a ceremony. This was a warrior preparing for battle. As Reverend Obinna put on his white vestments, his face had returned to a calm, composed state. No one could have guessed the tempest raging within him. He stepped out of his study, ready to proceed to the pulpit. But in his mind, he knew. This is not a wedding, he told himself. This is a battlefield, and the front line is this very altar. Nkem and Chinedu, followed by the groomsmen in matching white agbadas, entered the church to the resounding cheers of the guests. Camera flashes went off incessantly, capturing every moment. Nkem smiled, waving to everyone, trying to appear calm, but his heart was beating like a festival drum. He paused to hug his mother one last time before ascending to the altar. Once in his position, facing Reverend Obinna, he felt his legs tremble slightly. He leaned close to Chinedu. Friend, I feel like I'm about to explode. Chinedu whispered back, his smile never fading. In a good way, right? Just breathe deep. It's all going to be fine. And then, the music changed. The melodic notes of the organ rose, silencing all the whispers. The entire congregation stood as one, their eyes fixed on the large doors at the back of the church. The doors slowly swung open. And she appeared, Adama, in her pure white wedding gown, on the arm of her father, Chief Emeka, began her walk. She was a masterpiece of creation. The thin veil covering her face could not hide her ethereal beauty. The way she walked was slow, graceful, yet there was something unusual about it. She didn't walk so much as glide, her feet moving with an impossibly smooth motion, like the surface of undisturbed water. As Adama entered, a cold draft seemed to sweep through the church. The cheerful chatter ceased, replaced by a stunned, almost uneasy silence. Even the crying children fell quiet. It wasn't just respect for the bride. It was more like the reverence one gives to an ancient and powerful force that has just made its presence known. Enkem's heart leaped out of his chest. All he saw was the most beautiful woman in the world walking towards him. Love had blinded him to all the warning signs. He couldn't stop smiling. But not everyone was blinded. In the fifth row sat a respected elder named Baba Akintunde. He had been deaf for many years. He couldn't hear the music, couldn't hear the whispers. He could only see, and as Adama passed by, Baba Akintunde's old eyes widened in horror. He didn't see a bride. He saw a faint, cold aura surrounding her, and a dark, coiling shadow, like a giant serpent, wrapped around her legs. His old body began to tremble violently. He didn't shout, but let out a low groan from deep in his throat. One bony, shaking finger pointed directly at Adama. His mouth moved, forming ancient proverbs in a dialect few still understood, but the tone was one of sheer terror. "The water reclaims its promise," he mumbled. "The serpent coils in the finest flower." His son, sitting beside him, red-faced with embarrassment, quickly pulled his hand down. "Father, please be still. You're tired again," those nearby whispered, waving it away. "Poor Baba, his mind is wandering again." But a seed of unease had been planted. Reverend Obinna missed none of it. He saw it all. He heard Baba Akintunde's words and understood them perfectly. It was the confirmation he had feared. As Adama and her father reached the front of the altar, the pastor's eyes narrowed. He was no longer a wedding officiant. He was a sentry on high alert. Adama stood beside Nkem. She was so calm. She did not resemble a serpent, but the heavy feeling in Reverend Obinna's chest grew stronger. He smiled, a professional smile to mask his concern. "We welcome everyone here today to witness the sacred union of Nkem Dalim and Adama." As was custom, he gently placed his hand on the bride's shoulder to offer a blessing. And in that instant, he felt it. A bone-chilling cold shot up his arm. Not the cold of flesh, but the cold of a winter grave. A hostile, ancient energy seemed to push back against his hand. He withdrew it almost reflexively. Nkem looked at him, confused. Reverend Obinna quickly hid his shock, but his heart had begun to pound. He looked into her eyes, through the thin veil. And for a split second, just a fleeting moment, he saw it. A flash of yellow, the pupils narrowing into vertical slits. Just like in his premonition, he blinked, and they were back to their gentle brown. But it was enough. The pastor took a step back, placing his Bible on the pulpit. He looked out at the expectant congregation, at the blissfully happy groom, and at the beautiful vessel of darkness standing before him. He knew that his next words would not be the gentle rites of marriage. They would be the opening shots in a battle for a soul. Reverend Obinna did not proceed with the customary wedding vows. Instead, he cleared his throat, and a solemn silence fell over the church. "Before we join these two souls as one," he said, his voice resonant and clear, "let us join together in a special prayer. Let us invite the Holy Spirit to sanctify this ground, to cleanse this air, and to expose all that is hidden." His choice of words was unusual for a wedding. Nkem and the guests were slightly puzzled but remained respectful. In the front row, Chief Emeka and Mama Ifeoma exchanged a worried glance. Only Adama remained perfectly still, expressionless. The prayer began gently but quickly escalated in intensity. It was no longer a prayer of blessing but a prayer of spiritual warfare. Reverend Obinna's voice became as firm as a general's. "In the name of Jesus, we command any presence that does not belong to the Lord, any spirit that has entered this house uninvited, any covenant made in darkness, to reveal itself and be exposed by the light of the Almighty. As he spoke, strange things began to happen. The candles near the pulpit didn't just flicker. They hissed and sputtered out one by one, plunging the altar area into dim shadow. A low humming sound seemed to emanate from the very walls, the same ancient melody Adama had been humming. A few guests in the front rows suddenly felt dizzy, nauseous. The air grew heavy and suffocating. After the first prayer, Reverend Obiner announced a rite of blessing the union with pure water. This was a ritual he invented on the spot, based on his knowledge of ancient customs where water was used for both blessing and for cleansing and exposure. He picked up a small silver bowl containing holy water. He explained that it symbolized the purity and clarity their marriage should have. He approached the couple. First, he sprinkled a few drops on Nkem, who immediately felt a sense of unusual peace. Then, he turned to Adama. As he flicked his wrist, before the drops of holy water could even touch her veil, Adama recoiled violently, as if struck by lightning or burned by acid. And then she hissed. A sharp, venomous hiss. It was not a human sound. It was the sound of a reptile. This public, undeniable sign shattered everything. The guests gasped in unison. Nkem was stunned. Adama, what's wrong? The hiss broke the solemn atmosphere. People began to whisper, growing louder. What was that sound? Did you see how she moved? Mama Ifeoma shot to her feet, trying to intervene. She's just nervous, father. Please continue. Her voice was shrill with panic. But Reverend Obiner ignored her. He held up a hand for silence. His voice was now resolute, stripped of all ceremonial softness. Nkem, my son, come with me. We must speak privately. Now. Nkem stood frozen, looking from his terrified bride-to-be to the pastor's grim face. But, what is happening? There will be no wedding until we understand what is standing at this altar, Reverend Obiner declared, his voice booming through the church. The public declaration turned an incident into a crisis. The pastor led a bewildered Nkem into his study, leaving behind a chaotic crowd. Chinedu tried to calm people down, while Chief Emeka looked furious at this public humiliation. Inside the study, Nkem was nearly frantic. Father, what is it? Please tell me. Reverend Obiner looked him straight in the eye, direct and unflinching. Nkem, this is not anxiety. The woman you love is here, but she is not alone. There is an ancient spirit with her, a river demon bound by a covenant. I have seen its mark upon her. I have heard its song of invitation, and the holy water has confirmed it. It fears that which is sacred. Disbelief and horror washed over Nkem's face. A spirit? Father, that's village superstition. Adama is a godly girl. Good people can still become vessels for darkness, my son, when a door has been opened for it. And a door was opened long ago. If I join you to her now, I will not be joining you to Adama. I will be joining you to a python from the river, and it will destroy you. Nkem collapsed into a chair, his world completely shattered. The joy of his wedding day had turned into an unimaginable nightmare. Outside, the church was in turmoil. And at the altar, the bride stood, perfectly silent, waiting, a quiet predator in a white dress. Reverend Obiner and Nkem, his face pale with shock, returned to the chancel. The church was now a hive of frightened whispers and confused stares. Chief Emeka could take no more. He strode forward, blocking the pastor's path, his voice thick with anger. Father, what is the meaning of this charade? You are humiliating my family in front of the entire village. Reverend Obiner didn't even glance at him. His focus was entirely on Adama, who remained as still as a statue. He turned to the congregation, his authoritative voice silencing the noise. Everyone, please be calm. The ceremony will continue. But it will continue. In truth. The pastor stood before the couple. He ignored all normal rites. He looked directly at Nkem, his voice allowing no resistance. Nkem, in the name of God, lift her veil. The command was so unorthodox, so shocking. The veil is traditionally lifted only at the end of the ceremony. A gasp of disbelief rippled through the church. Mama Ifeoma let out a small, desperate cry. No. Nkem hesitated. His hand trembled. He looked at Adama, still hoping for some miracle. Hoping the woman he loved would snap out of this trance and smile at him. Her face behind the veil was so serene, so peaceful. "Do it," Reverend Obinna commanded, his voice like thunder. With hands that shook like leaves in the wind, Nkem slowly reached up, his fingers touching the delicate lace. He lifted it, so slowly, so very slowly. And the moment Adama's face was fully revealed, a collective scream of horror erupted from the congregation. Time seemed to freeze. It was still Adama's beautiful face. The same lips, the same nose, but the eyes. Dear God, her eyes. They were no longer a gentle brown. They were a brilliant, glowing yellow, emitting an unnatural light from within. Their pupils had narrowed into sharp, vertical slits, exactly like the eyes of a python. They were ancient, cold, and utterly devoid of human emotion. They stared into Nkem, not with love, but with possession. The church erupted. One woman fainted. Several others screamed and scrambled from their seats, knocking over pews behind them. The joyous wedding had officially become a scene of terror. Nkem stumbled backward, as if struck by an invisible blow. He tripped and fell onto the chancel steps. "Adama," he breathed, the word catching in his throat. "Your eyes." The thing wearing Adama's face did not blink. It slowly turned its head, a sickeningly smooth movement, and fixed its glowing eyes on Nkem. And then, it smiled. A slow smile that stretched wide across her face. A predator's smile. Its voice came, but it was changed. It was Adama's soft cadence, but underneath it was a deeper, colder, sibilant whisper. The sound of the deep riverbed. "Nkemdalim, my love," the voice cooed, using his full name with chilling deliberation. "We are already one. There is no going back now." Nkem, in his terror, could only shake his head. "No, this isn't you." The smile on Adama's face vanished. The voice lost its loving pretense and became cruel. "I have waited for this day, and you yourself brought me to the holy altar." Her body jerked unnaturally. Once, then twice. Her neck snapped to the side at an impossible angle. And then it let out a long, high-pitched, bone-chilling screech that echoed off the church walls. The sound of a great serpent, a sound of pure malevolence. People screamed and shoved their way to the doors. Chief Emeka stood frozen, his face a mask of shock and fury. "What is this? What is this madness?" he roared, his authority crumbling. But Mama Ifeoma was different. She was the picture of absolute terror. She knew exactly what this was. She clutched her chest, whispering to herself, her voice lost. No, this wasn't the plan. She had slipped. While others panicked, Reverend Obinna stood firm as a rock. He pulled the ebony cross from his pocket. Its dark wood was a stark contrast to the white of the altar. "In the name of Jesus Christ," he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "I command whatever demon resides in this woman, reveal your name to us." The thing in Adama laughed, a guttural, throaty laugh, full of mockery. "You dare challenge me, little priest?" The ancient voice boomed. "This body is mine." The demon's chilling laughter still echoed in the church. The crowd was in a panic, but seeing Reverend Obinna's steadfastness, a few brave elders and deacons began to act. They formed a human barrier, preventing further chaos and securing the chancel area. Reverend Obinna held the ebony cross forward like a sacred weapon. "You have no right to be here. This is holy ground. I ask again, what is your name?" The spirit scoffed. "Names are for mortals. In this land, they call me the echo of the deep, the keeper of promises. I am the ancient one who listens to the desperate cries by the riverbank." As it spoke, Adama's glowing yellow eyes left the pastor. They scanned the crowd and then stopped, locking onto Mama Ifeoma, who was cowering in the front pew. The demon's voice suddenly turned sickly sweet, dripping with sarcasm. "Ifeoma, my dear Ifeoma, are you not happy to see me again? Did I not give you everything you asked for?" The words were a bombshell in the silence. Chief Emeka spun towards his wife. "What is it talking about?" Ephioma? Mama Ephioma just shook her head frantically, her face drained of all color. No, no, she stammered. The demon continued its public shaming. Have you forgotten that night by the whispering river? The new moon was a sliver, and your tears were salty. You had nothing. Your daughter was sickly. Your husband was a failure. It spoke these words through Adama's own mouth, making them doubly cruel. It was using the daughter to condemn the mother. Ephioma, what did you do? Chief Emeka roared, his voice a mixture of desperation and dawning horror. He grabbed his wife's arm. Cornered, broken, and humiliated, Mama Ephioma confession tumbled out, punctuated by choked sobs. It wasn't a calm retelling. It was the frantic story of a mother at her wit's end. Back then, we had lost everything, she wept. Not just the business. The crops failed. A strange sickness kept falling on the family. People shunned us, said our house was cursed. Adama was just a baby, so weak, crying all night. I thought she was going to die. She took a ragged breath. I heard whispers of the old ways, of the river spirit that could grant favors, for a price. I was so desperate. One night, I took Adama to the sacred tree by the river. I called its name. I wept, I begged, and it answered. She looked up at the levitating form of Adama with her yellow eyes and screamed. It promised us prosperity. It promised our family protection. It only asked for one small price. Reverend Obinna interjected, his voice like ice. And what was that price, woman? Not her soul. Mama Ephioma cried, as if trying to justify it to herself. It said it only needed to borrow her. It said that on the happiest day of Adama's life, her wedding day, it would be allowed to be a vessel to walk among men for a short time. I thought it was symbolic, a temporary price. I didn't know it meant this. I didn't know it would try to keep her. This detail made her act more tragic and foolish than purely evil. She hadn't sold her daughter, she had loaned her, completely underestimating the nature of the evil she had dealt with. The congregation was horrified. The whispers were no longer of fear of the demon, but of condemnation for the mother. She dealt with darkness. She sacrificed her own child. Chief Emeka's reaction was one of complete collapse. His pride, his status, all of it was built on this dark pact. He shrank away from his wife as if she were a plague. Nkem heard all this from the floor, his heart breaking not just for Adama, but for the weight of the betrayal. He looked at the beautiful girl, now a puppet, and at her mother, the puppeteer, and felt a sorrow so profound it overshadowed his fear. Reverend Obinna spoke, his words a judgment. You made a blood covenant, woman. You opened a legal door for this entity. Spirits do not understand, temporary. A promise is a chain. An oath is a cage. You did not loan your daughter. You gave the python the key to her soul. The demon, through Adama, confirmed this with a triumphant hiss. The price was paid. The vessel is mine. The ugly truth was laid bare. The family was shattered, the community was in shock, and the demon seemed to be holding all the cards, with its legal right to be there now publicly declared. The hope for a simple exorcism was gone. Now, they had to find a way to break a legally established spiritual covenant, a much harder task. The demon, through Adama, had declared its ownership. The situation seemed hopeless. A covenant had been made, and the price was being collected before their very eyes. But Reverend Obinna's voice cut through the horrified silence. A door that was opened by desperation must be closed by faith. He shouted, pointing to the broken couple. A covenant made by a mother must be renounced by that same mother. Chief Emeka, Mama Ephioma, you are her parents. You have the authority to reclaim your child. Stand and renounce this covenant in the name of God. At first, Chief Emeka was stunned, paralyzed by shame, but as he saw Nkem still kneeling beside his daughter, and saw the monster wearing Adama's face, something inside him shifted. His pride shattered, giving way to paternal love. He stepped forward, his voice trembling but resolute. I, Chief Emeka, head of this family, I renounce and break every evil covenant made over the life of my daughter Adama. Every promise made in darkness is hereby nullified today. All eyes now turned to Mama Ifeoma. She crawled on her knees to the front of the altar, tears and mucus streaming down her face. Her confession had been a broken mess. Her renunciation had to be an act of clear strength. Reverend Obinna stood over her, his voice an anchor in the storm. "Repeat after me, with your whole soul." She looked up, her voice a raw cry of regret and maternal love. "I, Ifeoma, I confess my sin. I dealt with the darkness. But today," the pastor continued, and she repeated, "But today, in the name of Jesus Christ, I take back what was given. I cancel my promise. I break every bond. I reclaim my daughter, Adama, for the light." The moment the words were spoken, the demon in Adama reacted violently. It had lost its legal ground. Adama's body writhed on the floor. The demon screamed through her mouth, but this time it was a scream of pain, not of triumph. "No, the covenant was sealed. She is mine. Pray." Reverend Obinna roared at the congregation. "Join us, use your faith as a weapon." And the church erupted in a chorus of prayer. No longer whispers, it was a roar of communal faith directed at the possessed girl. Under this onslaught, the demon's grip seemed to weaken. Adama's body convulsed one last, violent time. A plume of dark, inky smoke seemed to pour from her mouth, dissipating into the air with one final, echoing shriek. Her body went limp, collapsing to the floor, completely still. The yellow glow in her eyes faded and vanished. Her eyes closed. A profound, almost unbelievable silence fell over the church. Nkem scrambled to her side, gathering her limp form into his arms. "Adama, Adama, can you hear me?" he called, his voice urgent. She stirred. Her eyelids fluttered and then opened, and her eyes were brown again. Weak, confused, but her own. "Nkem?" she whispered, her voice raspy. Where am I?" A wave of relief swept through the church. People began to cry, but this time with tears of joy. Chinedu yelled, "Hallelujah!" Mama Ifeoma crawled forward, sobbing her daughter's name. It seemed to be over. The monster was gone. Kem held Adama tight, burying his face in her hair, finally allowing himself to cry. The family was reuniting. The church was celebrating a miracle. But Reverend Obinna, though exhausted and drenched in sweat, remained watchful. He felt the evil had receded, but he did not feel the deep peace that usually followed a successful deliverance. A tiny seed of doubt remained in his mind. The moment was fragile and precious. Nkem held Adama in his arms, wiping tears from her face. She was weak and disoriented. "What happened? I feel like I just had a long nightmare." Mama Ifeoma crawled over, weeping, trying to touch her daughter. "Adama, my child, forgive me." The church was filled with soft sobs of relief. People hugged each other, thanking God. The danger seemed to have passed. But Reverend Obinna did not share their joy. His face remained grim, serious. He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the celebratory cries. "Wait," he said. "It is not over." Everyone turned to look at him, confused. Nkem looked up. "Father, what do you mean? It's gone." "The root remains," the pastor insisted, his gaze fixed on Adama. "We broke the covenant, but it was inside her for too long. It left a mark, a back door. It's waiting." No sooner had he spoken the words than Adama's body stiffened in Nkem's arms. A look of sheer terror crossed her face. She gasped, clutching his arm. It's coming back," she panted, grabbing her head. "I can feel it, Nkem. It's in my head, M." Her body gave a single, violent jerk that threw her from Nkem's embrace. She collapsed to the floor. This time, the transformation was instantaneous and far more terrifying. Her head snapped back grotesquely. Her eyes flew open, and they blazed with a brilliant yellow light, far more intense than before. The dual voice returned, but with none of the earlier mockery. It was now filled with pure, ancient rage. "You think you can cast me out so easily?" The roar came not from Adama's mouth, but seemed to emanate from everywhere at once, shaking the very foundations of the church. It pointed a trembling, furious finger at Nkem. The covenant was merely the door. The real plan was him. It began to reveal its plan with malevolent glee. I nurtured her, it said, referring to Adama, gave her beauty, gave her grace, to make her the perfect bait for a pious man like you. You would marry her. You would love her. And then, through her, I would drain the life from you. Piece by piece. It moved Adama's body closer to Nkem in a horrifying, slithering crawl. Your business would fail. Your health would crumble. Your name would turn to ash. You would die in poverty and disgrace, and it would be your precious wife who sends you to your grave, with no one ever knowing. The revelation was devastating. The goal was never just to possess Adama. It was to use her as a weapon to utterly destroy Nkem. Nkem fell to his knees, completely broken. Reverend Obinna stood between him and the demon. Your plan has failed. You have been exposed. Then a price must be paid. The demon roared. The stained glass windows of the church rattled violently. The covenant is broken. I demand compensation. I demand blood. It declared its price. I will not leave until I have the life of the groom. Or, it paused, staring at Nkem, a vow for his firstborn son. A horrific choice. An immediate death, or a generational curse. Mama Ifeoma screamed. Take me. Please, take me. You are not enough, the demon sneered. Nkem, seeing Adama's body being tormented and hearing the monstrous choice, found a new strength in his despair. He stood up. His voice trembled, but it was clear. Let her go. He walked towards the possessed Adama, past the horrified pastor. He faced those glowing yellow eyes. If that is the price, for her to be free, he swallowed hard. Then take me. For a moment, the real Adama seemed to surface. A single tear rolled down her cheek. No, Nkem, don't. She whispered in her own voice, a faint plea. But the demon regained control. It laughed in triumph. Such a foolish, sweet love. It raised Adama's arm, her fingers curled like claws, and aimed it directly at Nkem's chest. Nkem stood there, a sacrificial lamb, accepting his fate for the freedom of the woman he loved. The demon, through Adama's eyes, looked at him in triumph. Adama's hand, curled into a claw, slowly rose, aimed at his heart. The entire church held its breath, helpless before the impending horror. But in that moment, Adama's face twitched. Her raised hand trembled. A fierce internal battle was raging. Her love for Nkem was fighting against the demon's chains. Reverend Obinna saw it. He knew this was no longer a simple exorcism. This was a battle where love had to be the primary weapon. It is a lie, he roared, his voice filled with divine authority. The devil is a liar. It uses your love to mock you, but it fears the true power of love. Love is not weakness, Nkem. It is the strongest weapon. Then he looked to the heavens, no longer addressing the demon, but making a declaration to heaven and hell. The ultimate price was paid on the cross. The blood of the Lamb has redeemed every soul. You have no right to demand any other price. These words, invoking the ultimate sacrifice, seemed to be the final weapon. The demon recoiled as if burned. No, it shrieked, a cry of agony and rage. Seizing the moment, Reverend Obinna yelled, "The anointing oil." A brave deacon rushed forward and handed him the vial of holy oil. The pastor didn't just anoint Adama. He ran, pouring the oil in a circle on the floor around both Adama and Nkem, creating a sacred boundary. "This circle is the covenant of God," he declared. "No serpent shall cross it." Then, he took the ebony cross and pressed it firmly against Adama's forehead. It was the final assault. Adama's body arched backward in an impossible bow. The demon let out a continuous, piercing scream. Smoke, thicker and blacker than before, began to pour from her mouth, her eyes, and even her pores. The light fixtures in the church ceiling flickered violently and then exploded in a shower of sparks. The entire building groaned as if under immense pressure. Inspired by the pastor's courage, the congregation joined in one final, thunderous prayer. They were no longer praying for her. They were praying with the pastor, their voices a single force pushing back the darkness. With one last, violent scream so powerful it shattered the remaining windows, the demon was brutally expelled. A great gust of wind blew out of the church doors, carrying the foul smoke with it. From the direction of the whispering river, a massive splash was heard, as if something enormous had just been cast back into its depths. And then, Adama's body fell to the floor, limp and lifeless. For a moment, there was absolute silence, broken only by the tinkling of broken glass and the sobs of the congregation. Nkem rushed to Adama's side. He felt for a pulse, for breath. There was nothing. Her skin was cold, her chest still. The greatest fear hit him. In leaving, the demon had taken her life with it. No, 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 he whispered, clutching her. Mama Ifeoma crawled forward, wailing. My daughter, Reverend Obinna, utterly exhausted but filled with faith, knelt beside them. He placed his hand over Adama's heart. He did not perform CPR. He prayed. Spirit of life, return to this daughter. The breath you first gave, give it to her again. For a long, tense moment, nothing happened. And then, a faint cough, a ragged, shuddering gasp. Adama's chest rose. Her eyelids fluttered, then opened. They were brown, clear, and filled with tears. She looked up, first at the pastor, then at Nkem, who was holding her. Her voice was a weak whisper. I'm free. The church was steeped in a silence of exhaustion and awe. The acrid smell of ozone, from the shattered light bulbs, and a faint, foul odor from the demon still hung in the air. The floor was littered with broken glass, overturned pews, and the white silk decorations, now torn and dirty. Adama, weak but fully conscious, sat in Nkem's arms. He just held her, whispering her name over and over, as if to reassure himself that she was really there, returned to him. The congregants were still there, standing or sitting amidst the chaos, their faces still marked by horror, but now their eyes held a look of reverence. This was the time for truth. Mama Ifeoma, her expensive clothes now crumpled and stained, dragged herself before the couple. Her pride was gone. She knelt, unable to look her daughter in the eye, and just sobbed. Adama, Nkem, she choked out. Forgive me. I almost destroyed you both. I was so blind, with fear, with selfishness. Please forgive this foolish mother. Adama looked at her mother. Her eyes held an ocean of pain, but no hatred. After a long silence, she spoke, her voice weak but clear. I felt it for years, mother. A cold shadow always following me. I thought I was going mad. Her words were a knife in Mama Ifeoma's heart. For the first time, she spoke of her secret suffering. She took a breath. I forgive you. But from now on, we will have to learn to live in the truth. Chief Emeka stood a short distance away, his face a storm of conflicting emotions, shame, anger, and above all, relief. He, a man whose entire life was built on image and status, had just seen his castle crumble. He walked over, not with a grand apology, but with a quiet, broken confession. He looked at his daughter. Everything I built was a lie. It was his first step toward humility. Then he turned to Nkem, the young man he had once looked down on. Young man, you showed a courage that I have never possessed. I owe you an apology. Reverend Obinna stepped between them, his role now shifting from warrior to healer. He spoke to the family, but also to the entire congregation. Deliverance is only the first step, he said, like a garden that has just been weeded. Now the soil must be tended, fertilized, and replanted with prayer and truth. Otherwise, the weeds will grow back. He looked directly at Adama's family. You must go home. Burn every item, every charm, anything connected to the old covenant. You must cleanse your house. And most importantly, you must learn to speak to one another with honesty. He turned to the community. There will be whispers. There will be fear and stigma. The village of Isiama has today faced a darkness we have ignored for too long. But God has given us a chance to heal, not just this family, but all of us. Amidst the advice and the chaos, Nkem gently helped Adama to an intact pew. She looked at him, her eyes still teary, her voice full of self-doubt. "Do you still want to marry me?" she asked. "After all of this, I'm afraid I'm tainted." Nkem didn't hesitate for a second. He knelt before her, took her cold hands in his, and placed a kiss on her forehead. "I want to marry you more than ever. We fought a war together. Nothing can separate us now." His words were the final confirmation, stronger than any vow. Reverend Obinna came over, placing a hand on both their shoulders. "But this wedding," he said firmly, "cannot continue. Not today. A marriage must be built on joy and peace, not on the ashes of a battle. You both, and this entire family, need time." No one argued. Everyone understood. The ceremony was over, but a new journey, the journey of healing, had just begun. Chief Emeka, Mama Ifeoma, Nkem, and Adama stood together, for the first time truly a family, united in their raw truth, amidst the ruins of what should have been their happiest day. They left the church, not in shame, but in a quiet, solemn dignity. Nkem supported Adama, now her protector in a way deeper than any vow could have made him. Chief Emeka and Mama Ifeoma walked right behind, no longer powerful figures, but simply parents who had found their daughter again. As they stepped outside, a few of the older women began to sing softly. It wasn't a celebratory song, but an old hymn of mercy and deliverance. Gradually, other voices joined in, forming a gentle chorus that escorted the family down the long road ahead. It was not a blessing for a wedding, but a prayer for the journey of healing. After walking a short distance, Nkem stopped. He pointed to the distance, where the whispering river glistened in the setting sunday. The river, the source of all the horror, now looked peaceful in the soft, golden light. "It's just a river, my love," Nkem said softly. "It has no more power over us." Adama looked towards the river, her eyes no longer holding fear, but a new kind of clarity. She nodded. Yes, its power came from secrets, but there are no more secrets now. They continued walking, their world now just the two of them. "I will wait," Adama told Nkem, her voice firm, "until I am completely healed, until I am worthy to be your wife." Nkem squeezed her hand. "You were always worthy, Adama. I'm not going anywhere. 1 year, 2 years, however long it takes, I will be here." Their love, in the morning, had been a bright and innocent joy. Their love, in this twilight, was something deeper, quieter, tested by fire and made unbreakable. They did not have a wedding that day. Instead, they had something greater, a new beginning, cleansed by trial and built on the solid foundation of truth. And the story of the wedding that became a war would be told in the village of Isiama for generations. Not as a frightening folktale, but as a testament to hope, a reminder that even when the oldest covenants rise from the darkness, they can be broken. People learned that even when the whispering river sings its darkest songs, love and faith can always sing a stronger melody. And so our story comes to a close. A story of buried secrets, the price of desperation, and the unshakable power of love and faith. We have a few questions for you. What do you think of Mama Ifeoma's actions? Can desperation justify a pact with darkness? And if you were in Nkem's shoes, would you have the courage to make the ultimate sacrifice? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you love dramatic, deep, and meaningful stories like this one, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future stories. Every like and share is a huge source of motivation for us to continue bringing you more compelling content. Thank you for listening. See you in the next story.